Key: quiet strength of intentional presence. There comes a moment in life when you begin to question everything you were taught about connection, loyalty, and value. You gave your time, you answered quickly, you stayed available, you tried to understand people, support them, and show up for them no matter what. Yet somehow the more you gave, the less appreciated you felt. Why does this happen? Why do people sometimes overlook those who care the most? And why does constant presence slowly lose its emotional impact over time? In this video, we are going to uncover a truth most people never talk about. Human attention is deeply connected to uncertainty, intentionality, and emotional awareness. We will explore Stoic wisdom, emotional discipline, and the psychology behind why deliberate presence creates more impact than endless availability. By the end of this video, you will understand how to stop chasing validation, reclaim your emotional energy, and develop a calm, grounded presence that naturally commands respect without forcing it. Most people grow up believing that if they are kind enough, loyal enough, supportive enough, and always available, they will naturally be appreciated. Society teaches that giving your attention, your emotional support, and your energy should automatically earn love and respect. So people spend years trying to become everything for everyone. They answer every message immediately. They stay emotionally available at all times. They constantly reassure, comfort, and support others. They believe that being endlessly present is proof of love, loyalty, and care. But over time, many people begin noticing something painful. The more available they become, the more invisible they feel. The effort that once felt meaningful slowly becomes expected. The attention that once felt appreciated becomes normal. And eventually, many people start asking themselves a difficult question. If I give so much, why do I still feel overlooked? There is an uncomfortable truth about human nature that many people never fully understand. The human mind adapts quickly to what is constantly available. Something can still have value while losing its emotional impact. When something becomes predictable and endlessly accessible, the brain stops paying attention to it with the same intensity. What once felt special slowly becomes normal, and what becomes normal eventually fades into the background. This does not only apply to material things, it applies even more strongly to emotional energy and personal presence. When someone is always available, always responding, always understanding, and always giving, people unconsciously stop noticing the effort behind those actions. Not because the value disappeared, but because familiarity reduced awareness. The mind naturally focuses on contrast, uncertainty, and interruption. That is why patterns become dangerous over time. When your behavior becomes completely predictable, people stop observing you closely because they already believe they understand you. You become emotionally expected. A message always answered immediately becomes normal. Support always available becomes assumed. Constant reassurance becomes routine, and routine rarely creates emotional impact. This is why many people make a mistake when they feel overlooked. Instead of changing their approach, they try harder. They give more attention, more explanation, more emotional energy, more effort. But repeating the same pattern only deepens predictability, and predictability slowly removes curiosity. The real shift begins when presence becomes intentional instead of automatic. There is a major difference between consciously choosing to give attention and endlessly giving it out of emotional habit. Intentionality creates emotional weight. Automatic behavior removes it. This does not mean becoming cold, manipulative, or emotionally distant. It means becoming aware of where your energy goes and how your presence is experienced. Sometimes the smallest changes create the biggest emotional impact, a delayed response instead of immediate reaction, a calm pause instead of emotional urgency, silence instead of endless explanation. These subtle changes interrupt expectation, and the mind immediately notices them because human attention naturally moves toward uncertainty. Many people do not realize how emotionally dependent they have become on the reactions of others. Their mood changes depending on replies. Their self-worth changes depending on attention. Their peace disappears the moment silence appears. This creates emotional exhaustion because their attention constantly lives outside themselves. Instead of directing their own energy, they begin chasing validation. The Stoic philosophers warned about this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius taught that true strength comes from controlling your own mind rather than trying to control external reactions. Because the moment your emotional stability depends entirely on someone else's response, you lose control over yourself. One of the most powerful things a person can learn is how to become comfortable with silence. Most people rush to explain themselves because uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. They want to remove tension immediately. They want to clarify every misunderstanding instantly. But constant explanation often destroys emotional depth. The human mind becomes deeply engaged by what remains unresolved. When something feels incomplete, the brain continues returning to it. It reflects on it, analyzes it, and searches for meaning. That is why silence can sometimes carry more emotional weight than endless words. Not because silence is manipulation, but because silence creates space for thought. Real change begins internally. Someone can physically step back while remaining emotionally attached inside. They may stop messaging someone while constantly checking their phone, waiting for validation, reassurance, or reaction. That is not emotional freedom. True emotional freedom begins when your attention stops revolving around external outcomes. Instead of constantly chasing reactions, you redirect your energy inward, toward your growth, your discipline, your purpose, your peace. And when this happens, something changes. Your responses become calmer, your emotions become steadier, your presence becomes more grounded. You stop reacting impulsively to every emotional shift around you, and because your energy is no longer emotionally scattered, people begin experiencing you differently. Emotional scarcity does not mean withholding care or becoming emotionally unavailable. It means giving your energy consciously rather than endlessly. When attention becomes selective, it gains emotional weight. People value what feels intentional. If your emotional energy is available every second without boundaries, it slowly loses impact because it becomes expected. But when your presence is grounded, deliberate, and balanced, every interaction carries more depth. Quality creates emotional connection more than constant quantity ever will. Reactive behavior is controlled externally. Intentional behavior is controlled internally. When people react automatically to every emotional situation, their behavior becomes dependent on external movement. Someone pulls away and they panic. Someone becomes distant and they chase harder. Someone stays silent and they over-explain. But intentional people pause before reacting. They choose responses instead of repeating emotional habits. This creates emotional stability, and emotional stability creates quiet power. Quiet strength is not emotional coldness. It is emotional discipline. It is the ability to remain grounded during uncertainty. It is the ability to care deeply without losing yourself emotionally. It is the ability to remain calm without needing constant validation. Over time, intentional living changes everything. Silence becomes peaceful instead of frightening. Boundaries become clarity instead of guilt. Presence becomes meaningful instead of automatic. And self-worth stops depending entirely on outside approval. This is where true emotional freedom begins. So what is the deeper lesson behind all of this? Human attention naturally adapts to what becomes constant. Endless availability often loses emotional impact because predictability removes awareness. Real value is not only about how much you give, it is about how intentionally your presence is experienced. When you stop chasing validation and begin directing your energy consciously, your emotional presence changes completely. You become calmer, more grounded, more deliberate, more emotionally stable. And that quiet stability naturally creates deeper impact than endless emotional effort ever could. At the end of the day, true power does not come from controlling other people. It comes from mastering yourself, your reactions, your attention, your emotional energy. The moment you stop chasing what cannot be controlled, your presence begins carrying a completely different kind of weight, not because you forced it, but because it became intentional, grounded, and emotionally free. That is the quiet strength most people never develop. If this video changed the way you think about emotional energy, relationships, and personal presence, make sure you support the channel. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And if you want more deep content on stoicism, emotional discipline, self-mastery, psychology, and quiet strength, check out the other videos on the channel. Your next breakthrough might be one video away.